Welcome to You'll Only Listen Twice, our Bond retrospective podcast where we're taking a look at all the Bond films, both official and unofficial. Thank God we are back at official because today we are talking about the next James Bond film. I can't remember what number we're at right now because the number of episodes and the number of Bond films, it's all confusing to me. But we are at the Bond movie that is the inspiration for the name of our podcast. So today we are talking about
It's a very special episode.
It's a very special episode, yes indeed. And as always, I'm Jake.
I'm Troy.
This is a podcast?
It's a thing that you do. You put your voice online and then you sell advertisements and make money through that.
Yeah, Jan, you know how sometimes when we talk, people will listen?
No.
This is kind of like that.
That's unfortunate. I've said some regrettable things that I
Oh, yeah,
like
no,
to be
we can't get a
world.
job after this.
I'm Jan. My name is James Bond 007.
No, stop. We moved on.
No. We're not talking about that
We're here
today.
to restore sanity, Jan.
I still have more to say.
Oh, God.
According to this poster, Sean Connery is James Bond for one more movie.
Is underlined. There's only one James Bond. There's no 8 James Bonds.
No.
Or 7 James Bonds.
It never happened. Invented by a writer.
Indeed.
We won't have to talk about Woody Allen at all this episode.
But we will have to talk about Sean Connery in Yellowface.
You must become Japanese.
And Roald Dahl being Roald Dahl.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. It's going to be
We're already
live.
off to a great start talking about this. Anyway, yes, we are talking about You Only Live Twice, and You'll Only Listen Twice. Finally, we've reached the episode where we get to talk about the movie that gave us the inspiration for the name of this fucking podcast.
Because I got outvoted on listening to the Beatles with earmuffs on, but I fought for it.
You did.
I originally voted for BLM, Bond Loves Mamas, but alas, no cigar.
Has James Bond ever had an affair with a mother in a movie? I don't...
What, Madeline Swan? Actually, no, I haven't seen that movie. We haven't seen that movie. Cut that out. Cody, cut that out.
What are you talking about? That's just implied, Jake. We don't know that they've gotten together.
Right.
Yeah, and what? She doesn't have a daughter, Inspector.
Does Monica Bellucci have a daughter, Inspector?
She might.
She might. Let's say yes.
We don't know.
Let's say yes.
Okay.
Let's say Leslie Jones also had a daughter.
Wait, Leslie Jones? The SNL cast member?
I know Lorne Michaels kind of looks like M, Jan, but like you can't keep getting these things confused.
I am not confused at all. I know what I said.
Anyway, we're talking about You Only Live Twice today. So we should go into the backstory, maybe? We've been doing this for a couple times now. This isn't our first rodeo talking about this, but yeah, the backstory of how You Only Live Twice came to be. I think this was also supposed to be on Her Majesty's Secret Service at one point. This is when they didn't do it because the locations fell through because there was no snow in the Alps or whatever. But then they decided to do You Only Live Twice, which is weirdly one of the second to last Bond novel. Like complete novel, not short story compilation. This was like the second to last Bond novel to be published. And it was also it took place in the aftermath of Her Majesty's Secret Service. So it's weird that they're like, fuck it, we're going to go balls deep into You Only Live Twice.
Like, they picked Ian Fleming's most depressed book, which Roald Dahl said was unfilmable because it's just a travel log. And again, this is the movie that introduces us to Ernst Stavros Blofeld in the flesh, and they pick the book where he dies. And it's like, that's what they adapted.
Yes.
How did they pick the order to adapt these books? Because it makes no sense to me.
Convenience. Purely convenience.
Yeah, like we need a baller Jamaican movie. We need a baller Russia movie.
Well, Dr. No was like, we can't do Thunderball. Dr. No is also going to be cheaper. Let's do that. For Much With Love, Kennedy liked, so let's do that. Goldfinger, because fuck it. And then Thunderball, Kevin McClory, our Lord and Savior, allowed us to film Thunderball finally. So,
and then Roald Dahl comes in and he says, I'm just going to write Dr. No again, even though this is like the grand finale, maybe, right?
Yes, I think that's why they picked it. I think Film Crit Hulk pointed it out too, is there was also a feeling that after 5 movies, Sean Connery was getting kind of fed up.
Oh, he was it was beyond like it seemingly like he was fed up. He was going to the press and telling them, I'm done after this movie.
Yeah.
I am not coming back.
Checked out. He does look less enthusiastic to be there then.
Yeah.
Oh my god, he is so bored in this movie, but he was basically going around to like pretty much everyone who would interview him and go like, will you do more James Bond movies? And his answer was, no, I will not. And that is kind of where the problems with this movie, or the big problem with the entire series in general, started, because Sean Connery wanted a bigger piece of the pie. Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman were reluctant on taking on another partner in the Bond enterprise, and Sean Connery would go like, come on, can't you guys like give me like more money, because I'm the face of this franchise, like people have been stalking me and it's uncomfortable. I should at least have some sort of ownership in the series. And they said, no, we are the guys who brought James Bond to the silver screen. You didn't do it. You're just a Scottish milkman. We don't give a shit what you think. And Sean Connery, honestly, very deservedly so, said, fuck you guys, I'm done after this.
Yeah, so Connery, he wouldn't act if Broccoli or Saltzman were on the set. And I was reading, he was also insanely upset with Bernard Lee and Lois Maxwell, M and Moneypenny, because they agreed to be in this movie. I don't know, I've never heard of it, called Operation Kid Brother, with someone called Neil Connery. No, this is true. Connery was not talking to them because he was upset.
We're never going to cover that on this podcast.
He was upset about this movie that exists.
I know it exists, but we're not talking about it because it is not an official Bond movie.
It is, Jake. But it is.
It sounds like one of the fake movies in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
It does. Operation Dynamite. Okay, so while location scouting in Japan, they were trying to find a castle. I brought this up on an earlier podcast, but they were trying to find a castle. They couldn't find one that they liked, but there were a lot of volcanoes. And they're like, what if we put the villain's lair in a volcano? Fantastic, let's do that.
Inspired choice, I must say.
And also, they had to go to Japan to track down another rogue member of the production posse, because Peter Hunt really wanted to direct. And they were like, no. Lewis Gilbert, a British director who...
Well, Lewis Gilbert was on fire at this point because he had just directed Alfie.
He had directed Alfie, and he also directed the 1958 version of The Admirable Crichton, which is a wonderful film, and it's the only time I've ever yelled at Ryan Johnson on Twitter.
Isn't Alfie with Russell Brand?
No, you're thinking of Arthur, the remake. You're thinking of the Arthur remake.
Yeah.
That was a movie with Dudley Moore, and it was remade with Russell Brand.
Yes.
No.
Alfie starred the guy that should have been in that movie we covered last week.
Michael Caine.
Are Alfie and Arthur related at all?
No. One is about
one's an aardvark.
One's an aardvark and an alcoholic, and the other is a sex addicted bachelor that gets with Shelley Winters.
That's true. And I think there's an abortion?
There is an abortion. Oh, and you know who's the abortionist in the first Alfie is the guy who played Marcus in Raiders and Last Crusade.
Oh my God, Marcus Brody is in Denholm Elliott?
Denholm Elliott, yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
He's the abortionist, and it's like it's really weird because you're just like, oh, you're waiting for the abortionist to come, and the abortionist comes, and it's fucking Marcus, and you're just like, I don't know how to feel about this.
They did remake Alfie with Jude Law, I
Yes.
think. Yeah.
They did.
So anyway, Lewis Gilbert was the director, but Peter Hunt was like, screw you, I want to direct. And sources vary, but he went to Japan and Broccoli and Saltzman come and they're like, Peter, please come back. You can do second unit. And also, allegedly, not to get ahead of ourselves, but later on in post-production, when the original cut was considered a nightmare, they were like, Peter, fix the movie. And he's like, all right, but I want my own credit and I want to direct the next one, which is why he has the weird second unit and head editing credit in this movie.
I noticed that.
Also, one more weird thing about the trip to Japan, the whole team was supposed to go on this plane, but then someone was like, hey, skip your flight and come see a ninja demonstration. And they were like, dope. So they didn't go on the plane and the plane crashed and everyone died. And like, if they hadn't gone to that ninja demonstration, the whole, like Broccoli and Saltzman and that whole team would have died.
So perhaps in the inverse of From Russia with Love, this was a remarkably uncursed production. Can we say that?
Actually, we don't want to go that far because one of the cameramen during the Little Nelly scene with Bond's gyrocopter had his foot chopped off by a helicopter blade.
Which is weird because they shot that in front of rear projection.
I know, but they're getting the aerial shots, and I guess I forget like how they were filming it, but somehow the cameraman's foot got chopped off in the process, and they were able to reattach it, but they reattached it improperly, and he was in tremendous pain. He's just like, just please chop off my foot. And they're like, are you sure? He's like, yes, please, just fucking do it. And so they chopped off his foot, and he had a prosthetic foot. And then he would go on to do more aerial photography for On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
That's like a Simpsons gag. Like they try to reattach the foot, but it's like
it's
turned
backwards.
Around. It's back. Like,
I don't want it. I don't want it. Just get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can call it one of the lesser. I mean, that's more of a funny anecdote. I guess we can call this one of the lesser.
This is funny.
That's something we'll laugh about in retrospect.
In retrospect, it's funny. Yes, but at the time, I feel so bad for this guy.
Probably.
Oh, he's dead. No, he is dead. He is dead.
Yeah, so we can laugh about it.
Jan's been working on set all day, so I'm a little concerned that he's like, oh, so it's one of the smoother days on set.
Jan, we can't see what your feet look like right now, but
it's just the stump.
Well, you don't want to see what's under this desk.
Oh no, he keeps threatening.
Look, Paul, sets are complicated. They're a disaster. Shit happens. Sometimes you chop off a guy's foot off. Sometimes catering is bad. Sometimes you reattach the foot off that's backwards.
Sometimes the foot ends up in the catering. You have to get
in
it
the
back.
pretzel, in the pretzel bowl.
Yeah.
No one.
Somebody comically eats one of the toes and says,
Things like that.
"This hot dog, this little weenie is delicious."
Well, that's just Wendy's chili.
Oh, right.
Oh boy. But anyway, I was going to say, going through the credits, I went in cold. By the way, I'm producer Paul. I don't think I introduced myself, but I went in cold.
Paul, you're failing on the podcast etiquette. You're supposed to introduce yourself before you start speaking. And
didn't we fire him last week? Why is he still here?
Yeah, I'm kind of confused. I thought he's not even on the poster.
He keeps finding us for some reason.
I keep living twice, thrice. Many lives.
I thought they assassinated you in Hong Kong, Paul.
I heard you died on the job of podcast production.
I got better. But going in cold, I literally didn't even look up the credits, and I was like, oh, who's Lewis? Oh, right, Alfie, which I actually haven't seen. But
Alfie's pretty good.
It's kind of a high pedigree. I don't know if, how sure they were that this would be some kind of culmination. But between Mr. Alfie, Roald Dahl, and the DP of Lawrence of Arabia,
Freddie Young, yeah.
it's kind of like, okay, there's a statement here, or at least there's change from the established crew that had been in the mix.
Yeah, because
right?
Ted Moore was the DP on all the Bond movies at this point.
But he was on A Man for All Seasons when
yes.
they were shooting this.
Well, this movie has like gorgeous vistas until it's interrupted by like a hideous blue screen effect.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like they may have stuck with the same compositing team.
I love the driving scenes where Bond and Aki are driving through Tokyo, and you could just see like that blue screen that's not even keyed out at all.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
The scene in the end when they're in the boat and they have the sun at the perfect moment, and then you get the shitty blue screen of Bond's wife.
Her name is Kissy Suzuki. She's not actually Bond's wife,
She is actually Bond's wife. In the book, they're legally married.
but not in the movie.
In the movie, they do the whole ceremony.
We're supposed to be married.
Think again, please. You gave false name to priest.
Well, there's room for debate there, but my point is, cutting from that shot to the cutout of Kissy is literally like going from Lawrence of Arabia to a dog walker video.
Yeah, it was pretty flagrant. That kind of sums up You Only Live Twice. It really is like, this is beautiful. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. What are you? All right,
It's a
we're out
little
of
feast
ideas.
and famine. Also, the one that stuck out to me the most was his little gyro thing.
Yeah,
And
It's
there's
awesome.
because it has for I don't know. Your departments need to talk to each other, folks, because they built this little helicopter that has a windshield that is purely decorative, but it is completely clear so that it perfectly fucks up blue screen, right?
yeah.
Because sometimes
Yeah.
it's either completely invisible or it's blue, right? Because it's reflecting the blue screen.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a little noticeable.
Or is it on purpose? Is this supposed
It
to
might
be?
might be a subversive
Did James
masterpiece.
Bond actually die at the beginning? And is this all just his dying dream of wanting to be Japanese?
All right, should we do a quick plot summary of You
Well,
Only
we
Live
should
Twice?
also, well, before we talk about the plot, we should talk about the man responsible for the plot.
Yeah, Roald Dahl.
We kind of brought him up in the beginning,
Do
but
people know who he is?
It was a very famous anti-Semite that also gave us the Tim Burton chocolate movie.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think he's
Yes, it
working.
was,
I think
Jen.
he's working with Wes Anderson now.
And he's also doing the prequel for Wonka. We're going to get a lot of Roald Dahl in the next couple of months. folks.
he's responsible for some of the most beloved children's books of all time.
And he didn't, now I forget, did he work in British intelligence in the 40s with Ian Fleming and Christopher Lee?
I don't know if he actually worked in intelligence, but he knew Ian Fleming. Apparently,
Yeah.
Ian Fleming gave him the idea for his short story, A Lamb for the Slaughter, which was adapted into an episode of the Alfred Hitchcock show. Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Roald Dahl was a British fighter pilot? That's interesting.
He's a British fighter pilot.
Fighter pilot?
Fighter pilot.
Fighter pilot?
Fighter pilot. Yes.
Okay, and then he spied on the United States? Oh.
Uh-oh. Well, that explains one thing about this movie, which was an interesting. I don't know if it quite is continuous with the rest of the series. That this is a scenario where the hot-headed U.S. and Russia are ready to launch the nukes, and the cool-headed Britain
Yes.
is ready to mediate. They're ready to take the higher path.
Well, that just came from Casino Royale.
Join the Casino Royale fun movement.
Well,
the
no,
bidding
it's
scene.
funny because like watching this movie, I was so into the Casino Royale mindset because you have the hot-headed British, the hot-headed Russians, the hot-headed Chinese, and the confused British that are just like, oh, and polite. They're like, oh, should we bet on this? Yes, indeed. I guess so. Sure, but here they're like, oh no. We have our man researching this thoroughly. We know it's not the Russians. Don't worry. We are the smarter ones in this one. And I was just like, oh yeah, wait, this is not Casino Royale.
This whole movie is about reasserting British power. Really, the whole franchise. I always feel the James Bond franchise is Britain trying to go, we're still important.
We're
the
an
British
equal
Empire.
partner here in this mountain fortress where we are discussing World War III. It's us, the U.S., and the Soviets, and that's it.
And that's it. And China, who we will never reference by name.
Oh, China's behind the whole plot by Spectre. Anyway, wait, did we finish our discussion of Roald Dahl?
He wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah,
Matilda,
no. Well, we know that.
Many
Yes.
anti-Semitic comments. He did
Yes.
not write Chitty Chitty
Yes.
Bang Bang. That was Ian Fleming trying to be Roald Dahl. Did he write the script to Chitty Chitty
I
Bang
think
Bang?
he did, didn't he?
Yeah, and that's like
Yeah.
the same time as he wrote the script He Only Lived Twice, right?
One and the same.
Yeah. This was his entree to Hollywood.
And Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was directed by Ken Hughes, who was one of the directors on Casino Royale.
Join the Casino Royale fun movement.
That is true.
Yeah.
Oh, full circle.
It's all coming together, folks.
And apparently, well, this is Roald Dahl's first movie. Well, he wrote a movie that was like 5 weeks into filming and then got shut down. What was it, like the Hell's Bells Go Tick Tick Tick, something like that. That's what it's called. And so this was his first movie that was actually released. And apparently he had very good things to say about the production, because the only stipulations he had was include 3 Bond girls.
One who is pro Bond that dies, one who is anti Bond and switches, and the third one he ends up with.
Well, the second one is one who is anti-Bond and also dies.
Oh, yes, that tends to help.
Spoilers. And apparently, Louis Gilbert was very, very communicative with Roald Dahl and spoke to him throughout the production, very collaborative. And Roald Dahl's like, this is the way writing is supposed to be.
Because he never changed a word of what he wrote.
He never changed a word of what he wrote. He would always talk to Roald Dahl if he was going to change anything. And things between the two went along smoothly.
None of them were Jewish. So
Yeah, well, wait. Harry Saltzman was Jewish.
He was.
What about Albert Broccoli? No? He was
I
Italian,
don't think
right?
a guy named Broccoli was Jewish.
He's Calabrese. You know, the
Yeah.
Broccoli family invented broccoli. Like, he's descended from the people who invented broccoli.
We already mentioned that, Troy. Keep up.
Yeah, but like, our listeners.
Do we want to go in chronological order, like Casino Royale, which nearly drove us
I
insane?
mean,
or...
I think the broad swaths here are
Yeah,
a
I think
little
just
clearer.
a little clear. I mean, it helps that nothing happens in the first hour. So,
Well, everything happens in the first hour. Then the movie stops.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing with this movie.
Well, except for the phallic
Yeah.
imagery. Like, we got a giant Spectre space shuttle that looks like a penis, and then turns into a vagina, and then eats a giant
Another penis.
another penis. Bond dies, and how
He
does he
gets
get
shot.
to Tokyo? Yeah, he gets shot. And how does he get into Tokyo? He literally gets shot out of a submarine like he's cum.
Like Homer Simpson.
he's buried at sea.
Well, he's buried at sea, but they put him in a torpedo bay,
Yeah.
and they shoot him out like he's cum for him to be rebirthed
Jake, what's going
into a
on?
Japanese man.
Okay.
Did we see the same movie?
Jake?
I was reading my big black Bond book, and it
Oh,
was
God.
talking about all of
about the phallic imagery.
the phallic imagery of You Only Live Twice, and I'm just like, watching it this time, I'm like, oh yeah, is that a Roald Dahl thing? Was he just obsessed with dicks and anti-Semitism?
Probably.
Well, I think James Bond is just obsessed with dicks, and I don't think anti-Semitism. I guess
Not
I
so
will say this for the
specifically.
Bond movies. I don't think the Bond movies are anti-Semitic. They're racist in many other ways.
Has Bond ever slept with a Jewish woman? These are the questions that keep me up at night.
Well, Topol is in a Bond movie.
He is. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. There's
So a spaceship eats another spaceship, and I will say there are some pretty rough effects in this movie, but as far as 1960s space stuff, it looks okay. You know,
it looks pretty good, yeah.
Yeah.
It looks, I like the pre-title sequence.
This is a year before 2001. Yeah. So,
Oh my god. Well, when you
Yes.
put that into perspective,
but it is before 2001, so they had more leeway. Audiences are more forgiving.
At least you don't see like blue keying out effects. That's fine.
You don't see strings.
Right.
no, it looks pretty good. It's also, I think, a signal that these movies, first of all, the budget is getting insane, And the more insane the budget gets, also the more insane the movies themselves get. Because now we're in outer space, baby. Now we're dealing with cosmic matters.
This is the cosmic. What the hell is it called in Marvel?
Cosmic rays.
Well, everybody was all about space at this time.
This is the first time that space was in, and Bond
Yeah.
needed to capitalize on it. But they made the fatal mistake that Bond himself does not go to space in this film.
That will be corrected later on.
Yeah, it'll be correct.
That's a mistake that's going to be corrected one of these days.
So anyway, it starts out in space, and an American spaceship with astronauts. They're hanging out in space. All the Americans sound really annoying. That's another thing I should talk about in these movies. All the Americans in the original Bond movies have the most obnoxious Midwestern accents.
Hawaii to Jupiter 16.
To gain complete and absolute control of space itself for military purposes.
Well, that's how you all sound like to us, to be
Hey,
fair.
we're proud of our nasal twang.
It's like the Americans in Godzilla movies.
They make me hate Americans. I'm just like, oh my God.
It's working. It's working.
I love the set of the American officials where there's like a giant picture of Woodrow Wilson.
No, there's a
background.
reason for that. So the guy who plays the president in this movie, Alexander Knox, who's always sitting in front of the picture of Woodrow Wilson, he was nominated for an Academy Award in 1944 for playing Woodrow Wilson in the 1944 film Wilson, which is one of the most boring pieces of shit I have ever had to sit through. It is a garbage movie.
Woodrow Wilson tried to start the League of Nations, also was very racist.
This is the
Just
second
like Roald
episode in a
Dahl.
row I've had to reference a movie about Woodrow Wilson. There will not be a third.
Yeah. Paul, be sure to cut that in the...
Yeah, we're
No,
cutting that.
how dare you? I came with Woodrow Wilson trivia.
All right, so we're out in space. A giant ship that opens up with Soviet markings on it, eats the American ship, and also kills the astronaut that's hanging out on the...
It pulls a gravity. It cuts his rope and he's spinning.
And he's lost in space forever. The Americans think the Russians did it. The Russians are going like, you guys are crazy.
Yeah, ship eats another ship, and they have a meeting about it.
And the Americans are not happy because they think it's Russia. And they're like, we'll nuke you. And the Russians are like, but we didn't do it. Oh, we'll nuke you. Fuck you. And the British, the always calm British, are like, don't worry. We don't think the Russians did it. Our man in Hong Kong is on top of the case right now. Cut to James Bond, and he's making some sexy time with...
He's on top of Ling.
Ling, yes, that's her
Yes.
name.
He makes a very strange comment about how Chinese girls taste different from other girls.
Why do Chinese girls taste different from all other girls?
Yeah, so this movie, he goes to Hong Kong, he goes to Japan. Be prepared to hear a lot of just strange racist comments.
That it really sets the tone for this film. Yep.
Anyway, she locks him in the bed. A bunch of guys come out with machine guns, shoot him a bunch of times. The police show up and they're too late. He is dead, but at least he died on the job.
Well, at least he died on the job.
Which is one of the funniest parts of the movie.
And
I
they
love
say
that part.
he'd have wanted it this way.
He'd have wanted it this way.
And I'm like, I'm watching it and I'm like, 1000% that is true. They understand.
Yes.
This
Oh,
is
yeah.
exactly how James Bond intends to die in a bed, having just gotten it on, you know.
Not on an island holding his daughter's doll, getting nuked from orbit with his rare disease.
Wait, Troy, what are you talking about?
I don't know. I'm just thinking maybe that's how James Bond would want to die. Like,
Why would he want to die that
That's
way?
the
I don't know. I
absolute
think he also
last
likes
way.
poached eggs. Like, I feel James Bond likes poached eggs.
We're gonna have to mute you, Troy.
Yeah, we're gonna mute you because your schizophrenia is just off the charts right now.
I
You're
see
talking
it.
about-
I see the vision.
It sounds like someone had a little too much of the Zaza.
Bond would never have a child, let alone die because he needs to get his child's toy back. That's
be so
ridiculous.
convoluted. It would be convoluted.
It would be really pathetic and desperate. Anyway, so Bond...
Wait, one of the police officers who finds the body played the Master on Doctor Who. I don't watch Doctor Who, but I thought it should be pointed out. It means
That
nothing to me.
means something to somebody.
I
I'm
appreciate
sure.
that you're servicing our audience, Troy. We need to expand into that market.
Troy, this is the wrong beloved British franchise. We don't talk about Doctor Who. I could give a shit. There's like 60 years of TV shows. I'm not gonna watch that shit.
Fuck
I
that
will
nerd
watch 60
shit.
years of these movies. Anyway, so Bond dies on the job. He would have wanted it this way. We get to the opening credits sequence, which done again by Maurice Binder.
Actually, Jan, I've never said this before, but you do kind of look like Woodrow Wilson.
No, he
Thank you.
doesn't.
You're right, Paul. You look
Fuck
like
you, Paul.
Woodrow Wilson.
Okay.
Paul is jealous.
You do seem kind of like the kind of person who would want Birth of a Nation to be the first movie screened at the White House.
That's actually what they're watching when the president and You Only Live Twice is sitting there in front of the Woodrow Wilson portrait. He's watching Birth of a Nation.
Oh, God.
And he's like, oh.
It is a little confusing in that room with the it's like inside, but it has big windows, and then they're looking at something. But most of the shots, they're just looking at the wall.
And they were just so proud. They're like, we got this guy who played Woodrow Wilson 20 years ago, and he's in the movie.
The big meeting room was like an actual location that they, somewhere in Europe, they were like, yeah, it was in Japan. No, it was in,
Wait, at the beginning or the later one?
Beginning.
The America. Okay.
Okay.
I was talking about the
President Woodrow Wilson.
where the Americans are like
Yeah.
watching, like the missile's gonna do the. Blah, blah.
Yeah. So James Bond is buried at sea.
No, we're at the title sequence.
Oh,
Troy,
fine.
we gotta talk about the title sequence.
The song
Because-
is mid, but
No,
What?
absolutely
It
not.
is not
Oh,
mid.
dude.
Nancy Sinatra.
You're the Mad Men fan.
Nancy Sinatra did not do 25 takes that were cobbled together into one take because she sounded like Minnie Mouse. For you to
This
call
is
this
all
song
true.
mid, this is fantastic. This is a fantastic song.
The song is great.
It is.
It's a
It
bop.
is a beautiful song. Well, because
Yeah.
Paul has no heart. The only heart he has is for Casino Royale 1967.
Join the Casino Royale fun movement.
So of course,
Yeah,
we feel like-
after that, I feel like he's in a bad mood for all the movies. The song
They
is
raised
bad.
the
Jan
standards
doesn't
too
look
high.
like Woodrow Wilson. Jesus Christ, dude. Chip.
you're just shitting on our parade because that song is. It's one of those songs that's just it's so different from the first couple.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe more in line with
Yes.
From Russia with Love, but even so, it's a lot more melancholic.
It's the first
Weirdly.
romantic, melancholic Bond song. The first four were kind of more like, get pumped, motherfuckers.
the titles what we're seeing is umbrellas and volcano lava.
Yes.
Right.
Silhouettes of umbrellas.
That's the thing that I love about this movie is this does feel like it's supposed to be like a grand finale for this like Spectre arc, but at the same time it feels like a weird James Bond spin-off, like The Sweet Life on Deck of Second
Yes,
Cody. Like James Bond
it
goes
does.
to Japan. Like
Everyone has little naval outfits in this
It's
one.
The Sopranos go to Italy. Yeah, it's a vacation.
exactly.
episode.
Yeah, it's one of those episodes.
Yeah.
Jay, do you remember that one time where we encountered Nancy Sinatra?
Oh my god, it was the most embarrassing moment of my life.
Oh my god, yeah, I know. Well, we were with our good friend who we will not name.
Oh well, our friend Bleep. He So how the fuck did it happen? Oh yes, no, it was for Melissa actually. From pure happenstance, the woman who is now my wife at the time was living in Prague, and I did not know her yet. I did not know this person, and I had only known Jake and for a few months at this time.
Wait, what?
Jake and Franz Oberhauser. Me and Franz, and by the way, our friend Franz is a crazy person. We love him, but he's clinically
Whoa.
insane. And the first time I met him, I thought he wanted to make love to me. That's another story. But this was just a few weeks after I'd known him, and he insisted that I go with him and Jake to literally like ambush Nancy Sinatra, who was coming out of the school, of the film school, and he just had like a Frank, not even a Nancy Sinatra, a Frank Sinatra CD case for her to sign for Melissa, who was in Prague at the time. That's pretty much the gist of it, right? And
Yeah, that's
Nancy
pretty much
Sinatra
it.
seemed like terrified and confused.
Oh, she was so done. She was ready to go
Yeah.
home, and then we basically cornered her afterwards so Franz Oberhauser can get her to sign the CD. And it was a slightly embarrassing experience.
I wanted to die. Yeah.
All right, guys, we are 7 minutes into You Only Live Twice.
Okay, not that much happens in this movie, honestly, guys. Okay, he's not dead, folks. Plot twist.
Yeah, James Bond, he gets his burial at sea. They publicize that the naval commander, James Bond, is dead.
And then a submarine gets him. Some divers get him.
Whoop.
And he's like, oh, what did I miss or whatever? Permission to come aboard.
And they're like, permission granted, thank you. Gets up and he does the hat trick, but with his naval cap this time.
And in different shots. I noticed.
That's what I was gonna say. I love the subversion that the MI6 officers are on a boat now. I think M looks really cute in his little Navy outfit.
That's the funniest shit is that it's like everything is now placed on this submarine. And everybody's in theme. It's like like a tiki bar, basically.
Yeah, that's
like
what
a
I'm
pirate
saying.
Tiki bar.
This feels like a James Bond spinoff. But then at the same time, when he does the permission to come aboard, he says it's so bored, and you're like, huh, something's missing. And then he does the hat trick, but it's not on a wide shot. It's
it's a
cut up,
two-shot.
and it's like, and you start realizing, oh, he's done. Like he's.
That was the point where you realized he was done.
Yeah.
Well, another giveaway that at least through me, Moneypenny shows up in her sailor outfit. He just calls her Penny.
Yeah.
No. I don't know if that's him being done. I do feel part of this being the last James Bond movie is there's a lot of comments made from the beginning to the very end of this movie that him and Moneypenny are like the one true couple. Like everyone's like, when are you going to date Moneypenny? And like, she's like interfering with him. And it's like, oh, are they finally going to get together?
I mean, it's more overt than ever, but yeah, they don't pay off he meets with M and he's like, all right, the passphrase, all I have for you is a word, Tenet. No, all I have for you is a phrase, I love you. And then he's like, I love you, M. And then Moneypenny, she's like, now you need to say it to me, James. It's some version of that. And he's like, I got it. See ya.
Oh, see, I briefly
later.
fell asleep during that part.
What?
So when Mr. Tanaka tells him I love you, I was like, what the hell is going on?
I love you.
I love you.
He just decided to say it.
Yeah.
This impressive balding Scottish man falls into his office and he's just like, I love you.
By the way, can someone explain to me how James Bond faked is that? Like, why did it have to happen
So
that way?
MI6 set up all of that. He wasn't really shot. He wasn't really getting laid, I guess.
No, they keep making comments about it too.
Yeah,
like
he's
how
like,
he got a massage, but he didn't finish the job. They keep bringing up that he never finished the job. But he finishes the job with Aki.
It's like performance art for him. Like he wanted to live out his ideal death. So it's just for himself, you know?
Because I think the implication, right, is kind of what Paul was talking about is, yes, even at this point in the series, James Bond is so famous as being like the guy who fucks up Spectre's shit that he has to die and pretend to be a guy named Fisher just to do his job.
Yes.
He's pretty much undercover, not as James Bond, almost the whole movie.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, he's either another guy or a Japanese man.
Mostly a Japanese man. But before he gets shot out of the torpedo tube, just like Homer Simpson, another thing that I was like, wait a minute, Bond went to Cambridge?
Yeah.
What?
Bond went to Cambridge.
Before that, he went to Eton, and then he went to Cambridge. Yeah.
You forget I took a first in Oriental languages at Cambridge.
Bond is a very much the upper British elite.
I mean, he doesn't, I don't know. I guess maybe
he's
it's the
just
tenor
like
of
Ian
Sean
Fleming.
Connery's performance. He does not read as actually smart. Is that bad to say?
But no. Well, Jake, that's the whole point of James Bond, is he's smart without being smart. He's the jock who knows nerdy, refined things.
He's street smart.
Yeah. That's the whole appeal of Bond.
Well, the way Sean Connery plays him, he's kind of like the Norm Macdonald of Secret Agents.
Yeah,
Where
I would agree with that.
where he doesn't seem like he knows what's going on when at first, but then you realize, oh, he's a lot smarter than he's actually letting on.
Yes.
He cannot defuse a bomb, though.
No.
To be fair, in all of the movies, all of the spy work and detective work that he does completely fails. He mostly succeeds because of luck and happenstance. And at the end, he's like, I did it.
And the women he has had sex with.
Yes.
And at the end, he's like, I did it. And he just bones a chick. And I'm just expecting Barney to come out and be like, what do you mean you did it? You didn't do anything. Like.
Anyway, then he gets to Japan.
Oh yeah, and here's a continuity error in this movie. The whole point of the first hour of the movie is James Bond going, I've never been to Tokyo, but him and M had a sex adventure in Tokyo established in an earlier movie.
Oh, once when I was with Am in Tokyo, we had an interesting experience.
Thank you, Miss Moneypenny. That's all.
That is true. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
I just realized. Yeah, you're right.
They messed up.
Roald Dahl did not watch the other movies.
Roald Dahl did not watch the other movies.
He watched Dr. No.
He watched the first one
it.
and just took it.
Took it and ran. James Bond gets to Japan. And what does he do?
He goes to a sumo wrestling match.
I find that amusing.
Yeah. And then he goes, I love you to everyone in the sumo. I love you.
They didn't include the scenes where he goes up next to a person. I love you.
I love you.
And they look at him.
Speak
What?
Japanese, like, huh? Nani? Isn't that what it is?
Nani?
And then he goes off on a regular adventure with this random Japanese person. They're like, oh, wait. No, you're not my contact. And he goes back to the sumo wrestling match.
They had to cut a whole hour of the movie that was just Sean Connery wandering off with people.
He just goes with a guy on his car, and then the guy like stops and starts unzipping his pants, and she's like, oh no.
And James Bond goes, Q? Q, is this you? Is this a thing?
But no, it's not Q. It's Aki.
Yeah, it's Aki, played by Akiko Wakabayashi.
She's a good Bond girl, I think.
Yeah,
Oh,
she
she's
was
great.
supposed to play Kissy Suzuki, the Bond girl you see later in the movie, but the woman they cast to play the character who would become Aki, Mihama, could not speak English very well. So she threatened to throw herself off her hotel room balcony if they kicked her out of the movie. So instead they switched roles, and Akiko said she would do it if they renamed the character Aki.
And she's great.
That's one of the funniest parts of the movies, when Aki dies, and they're just like, here's another one.
Yeah,
they don't mourn her at all or anything.
Aki was not in the book, and I don't mean to say that the Broccoli's maybe had a bad formula in this case, but if you had just taken Kissy Suzuki and made her an Aki, the same character, one might say that would be a much better movie.
I would agree.
Yeah.
For some reason, they were dead set on 3 girls.
Yeah.
3 Bond girls in this movie, which I'm just like...
Because then we'll get that delightful gag with the... Well, we'll get to the wedding, but...
I think it's very funny, the fact that they just, like, replaced her. It's very, Buñuelan, if you will.
Well, it's very weird because Aki falls in love with James Bond, and they have really great chemistry together. And then first they go, okay, James, you have to get married for plot reasons later in the movie. And Aki goes, me? And they're like, no.
And Sean Connery is totally into marrying Aki. Sean Connery is...
Yeah.
Listen. Here's when we get to the nitty-gritty of the thing. Because the thing is, the first half of this movie, I was thinking, this is genuinely amazing. This is some of the best James Bond stuff. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I was kind of enjoying it. Yeah.
It's nice.
I thought it was well directed. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
I thought it's awesome. The actual spy work that James Bond is doing. I like that you don't know from the beginning that this is Spectre, and you sort of have to build up to it. Then we get to the castle, and then the movie becomes...
Do you mean the volcano?
No, the ninja school, yeah.
Oh, the ninja school, yeah.
Yeah, then we get to the ninja school, and the movie just kind of takes a turn where it's just like chilling. Like,
Yeah.
It pumps the brakes hard. Yeah. I mean,
hard, but it's still so amusing to me just because of how like how insane it is what we're watching. You know, like I could
I
not
think
believe.
when Q does the stop motion assembly of the Whirligig, that's when the movie changes for me. I'm like, this is a different movie now. Because before it, yeah, that first hour is just James Bond. He's going to offices, sliding down ramps, beating people up, fighting the Rock's grandpa, Peter Malvia, the Rock's grandpa.
No, but when I knew that this movie was great was when Sean Connery is chasing. I think he's chasing Aki at some point.
Yes,
and,
for some reason.
And then she has a Mario 64 trap. Yeah. You know, like when Mario's trying to get to the Bowser painting, and he just falls through there. And then he gets to an amazing set, and he meets Mr. Tanaka, who is great, I think.
Tanaka is like a close second next to Karambay of the coolest Bond allies who are just like, he's basically the same character as Karambay.
I like him in theory,
Exactly.
but he says so much racist and sexist stuff that I admit that hurts him a little bit for me.
But Troy, this was a movie from 1967 written by Roald Dahl and Ian Fleming.
This was a little more racist and sexist than Casino Royale, and I'm like, oh man, brother, the bar's in the basement. There's this whole weird bathing sequence when he meets Tanaka. Tanaka's like, your English girls would never do this. And it's all these women in bikinis. Sean Connery and Tiger Tanaka, which are their character names, they are fully nude, and the whole scene's like, are you going to see his penis? And they're like washing him and like talking about English girls versus Japanese girls. And I'm like, brother.
But you're in the wrong franchise, brother, if you don't want to see that kind of stuff in the James Bond
I'm
movie.
here to keep us honest.
But no, I mean, it's one of the most notorious sequences in this entire series, right?
Well, it's so iconic that it was the poster art for the movie of Bond being bathed.
In quotation
And
marks.
it has one of the best lines of all time, which is when Mr. Tanaka tells Bond, I envy your chest hair because Japanese men don't have chest hair.
Japanese men all have beautiful bare skin.
And then I go, what? This movie is incredible. I love it.
No, but remember, doesn't Bond or Tanaka say women nest in your chest hair or something? Like, it's weird.
No, he quotes a proverb written by Roald Dahl.
Yep, probably.
Japanese proverbs say, bird never make nest in bare tree.
So far, the movie's ticking all my boxes. Lovable characters, great sets, great lines,
great values,
a great setting, just a great value. And also, I think coming from Thunderball, I do think that Louis Gilbert, combined with the powers of Freddie Young, they do, like, you can see more of the production value here. Like, there's a really cool helicopter scene. Not when they're flying the helicopters.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Wait, there's one part that we forgot to mention between when he goes to the sumo wrestling match and he meets Tiger Tanaka, is that he meets Charles Gray.
I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Oh, yeah! He meets Charles Gray from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I'm sure no other movie that we will ever talk about.
Double jeopardy, Mr. Bond.
So he's playing Henderson.
Yeah.
Who has one leg, and Bond has to figure out if it's Henderson. He's like, just need to make sure, and he just whacks his leg as hard as he can. You just hear a thump.
Excuse me. Thank you.
I'm glad you got it right.
I have a question about Henderson, which I noticed this time. So, yes, as listeners who have seen the movie, or may have just picked up from our conversation, this is the movie where Bond, in order to accomplish his Japanese mission, has to become Japanese, and he gets the surgery to look more Japanese. Do we think Henderson got the same procedure?
No.
No? Because he's all, like, oiled up. His skin is pulled back?
But his character does have a Japanese first name, doesn't he?
No.
No, he's supposed to be. He's an immigrant to Japan because he says
in the book he's Australian.
He said that he stayed there after the war and he's been there for 27 years.
I myself have lived here for 28 years, and I'm just beginning to know my way about.
He's supposed to be
right.
a transplant
His
to
first name
Japan.
is Diko, which I guess could
Diko.
be Japanese or Australian. You're exactly right.
You know what? This movie kind of reminds me of the Martin Scorsese film Silence, and how it's like.
Oh, did you know that the guy who played Tiger Tanaka was in the original filmed version of Silence? I found this out in my research.
See, it all connects. This movie and Silence are both inspiring tales for young men that want to become Japanese.
Wait. So in this movie, is Andrew Garfield James Bond, and Henderson is Adam Driver because he just pops up in the middle and then gets beaten in the back until he dies?
No, Henderson is Liam Neeson because he's been like living in Japan for too long, and now he's
Blofeld is Liam Neeson. Blofeld is Liam Neeson.
Yeah, we'll say that Blofeld's Liam Neeson.
But
that makes more sense. He's just like, you just gotta give up all your
values.
Give up your values.
Sit in a chair.
You just have to become Japanese.
You must become Japanese.
That's why Blofeld has the eye scar, because they fucked up his surgery.
Oh no.
Well, okay, so he meets up with Henderson. Henderson is dead.
They talk about spy stuff. He gets stabbed in the back. James Bond runs and beats up the guy that threw the knife, and then he puts on his clothes and gets in the car, and I'm like, oh wow, we're getting right to it, aren't we? He's gonna start.
That's why this movie is economical in its storytelling. This movie moves. He's doing the spy work. It works. Roald Dahl is a master storyteller. Go on, Jake.
Well, he disguises himself by putting on. Luckily, the guy had a trench coat, a face mask, and a hat. And so
he's wearing a COVID mask.
So The Rock's grandfather can't recognize him and just puts him in the bag. He's like, oh, obviously you're the same guy. So yeah, and he also puts on his shoes. And his shoes are those black and white, like, they look like bowling shoes.
Yeah.
And he wears them like for the next 15 minutes of the movie, and it's
he does
delightful.
like the shoes. I guess they fit. He gets taken to this like office building, and then he gets loose and beats up a guy
with a couch,
which is an escalation from the chair that he uses as a weapon in From Russia with Love. So everything's bigger in this movie.
In a way, you could say that the chair is like James Bond's dick, and he's beating it on The Rock's grandfather.
That's an interesting theory. That
there's so much phallic imagery, Roald Dahl. Oh my god!
But The Rock's grandfather, he's in it, and he fights James Bond, and it is cool.
Oh wait, is that actually The Rock's grandfather?
Yeah, we're not joking. That's Peter Malvia, The Rock's grandfather. Let's find out what side. Via adoption.
Oh,
he's his adoptive grandfather.
But they open up this little door in this office, and for some reason my mind went to this. You know how it's like at a hotel they have a mini bar, but it's like in the fridge. Did Roald Dahl read mini bar and he put a small bar in a room?
Yeah.
Because it looks like a giant fridge or a small bar. You know what I mean?
Well, with Wonka vision, we can make a small bar a big bar, and a big bar a small bar.
This is a very whimsical movie.
Yeah, it's very whimsical. It's the most whimsical Bond movie so far.
He like kills The Rock's grandfather and locks him in a mini bar, which is actually a room.
But he also has to try the vodka, but he doesn't like it because it's Siamese vodka.
Siamese vodka.
He hates Siamese vodka. However, he knows the exact temperature that sake should be served at.
Yes.
Yes.
He's a very learned man.
Well, and he also took a class on Oriental languages at Cambridge.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yes.
In quotes.
You forget I took a first in Oriental languages at Cambridge.
You only think he's stupid because you're envious of his chest hair.
Do you think James Bond had sex with a lot of women in college and he had to like talk to them for like 4 years?
That would be weird if he had to like see them again.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't know why. I think this movie...
Well, I guess he saw Sylvia Trench again, so...
I actually realized this movie that Moneypenny had kind of taken the role of Sylvia Trench, which maybe is why Sylvia Trench is obviously not essential, because you kind of have Moneypenny as, oh, it's the woman that James Bond has to see again.
Yeah, so he gets out of the building, and then he hooks back up with Aki, and this is when the Mario 64 trapdoor comes. But first, one bit that really did make me chuckle is when they're driving, and he's suspicious of her or something. He's like questioning her, and she's like, I have no information to give you. And he says, we'll soon see about that. Slow down. And then rather than because she does seem suspicious in this moment. So she's driving a car. She parks and then just runs away. And then he chases her, and then he falls down a trap door and pops out into this guy's office, and he's waiting for him. And Tanaka is very complimentary, and he's very trusting of Tanaka.
If you meet a man and the first thing that you tell him is "I love you," you will automatically gain his trust immediately.
That's how you met Franz Oberhauser.
That's how I met Franz Oberhauser, basically.
Right. Yeah, he comes down, Tanaka's in a towel.
Yeah.
We got to have Franz Oberhauser on the podcast at some point.
Well, basically, they did have like a bath naked together.
Yeah, well, that's what the weird part is. All the women are in bikinis, but they go to great lengths to be like, no, they are fully nude. And I'm like, okay.
That's the way it is in Japan at the onsens, at the water springs.
Oh, I thought everyone was nude. I didn't know the women wear bikinis. Do they also wear bikinis when they do the race swapping surgeries, like in this movie?
Well, when I did my race swapping surgery, no, but you know, time we're more progressive now, Troy. Time.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, when you see the operation performed in white chicks, they're actually relatively normal medical professionals.
You know, I was watching this movie and the race swapping surgery. It reminded me of Team America.
Yeah. Well, the whole second half of this movie is just Team America.
Yeah, no, it's like oh, the surgery went perfectly.
Amazing.
The valmorification completely worked.
Sit up and take a look, Gary.
And it looks like shit.
It looks terrible. No, that's why
It's uncanny.
That's why the race swapping in this movie is funny. It's not just because it's not like haha yellow face, you know, that would be horrible. It's because there's this giant set of this very complex laboratory.
Yeah.
And you see them like
they hype you up for it.
You see him very carefully doing the surgery, and then he comes out and he looks the same but darker and his hair is down.
They put a different toupee on him. That's it.
He looks like a beetle.
Yeah, they're like, get ready. We're gonna put a toupee on.
He looks
you.
like he just looks like Paul McCartney.
It looks incredible.
I don't know if it's Freddie Young's sumptuous cinematography, but yeah, at least on my my viewing, his skin did not look different. He just has a toupee, he has eyebrows, and he's squinting a little bit.
Yeah.
That's all he's doing.
No, and they make a moment of like saying that they're putting like latex over his eyes.
Yeah.
And then the next scene, he's just like bending down slightly.
Oh yeah, he's stooping the whole time.
Yeah, he's stooping so that you won't notice that it's just Sean Connery in a terrible toupee.
I love when he gets to the island and he tells a fisherman like "Arigato gozaimasu,"
which again is Highlander.
No, there are scenes in this movie where I'm not sure if he's supposed to look Japanese or not. Like when
my big question is, when does he take at a certain point he's undercover as an astronaut, but at what point in the continuum is he not playing Japanese?
I was trying to figure this out too.
I think by the time he rescues the astronauts, he looks English.
He goes in the water and he doesn't have a toupee anymore. It's just his natural balding hair. I have no idea if he's supposed to be Japanese or not, or like if the water like took away the Japanese-ness.
So you think when they're on the island?
I just want to mention one more thing. I read on Wikipedia that on the "You Only Live Twice" book, James Bond gets amnesia at the end, and he ends up believing that he's actually like a Japanese fisherman.
Yes, that actually
and that's
happens.
how the book ends.
I like to think that when Ian Fleming got depressed, he actually did that. He's like, I'm Japanese now.
The book "You Only Live Twice" is from people who've reviewed it. I haven't read it yet, but it's like his most fatalistic book, where it's just like, yeah, everything kind of just sucks. I'm gonna die, or I'm gonna just forget everything and become a Japanese fisherman, and I don't know my identity. And then I think the book ends with him going like, there's something not right. I'm not a Japanese man. I need to figure out who I am.
It was like that scene in Tarzan when he looks at his reflection. And he's like, I don't look like everyone else. Why am I different, Mom?
But then Kissy Suzuki is pregnant with his child, but doesn't tell him.
Yes, that comes up in a later book.
So he meets Tanaka.
Yes.
They get on his train, they look at a photo and they enhance it like in Blade Runner. Then they go to his house. We already talked about, yes, one of the most iconic and uncomfortable sequences in the series.
Yeah.
They said he looks at the bathers, the professional bathers, and says, I like the plumbing. And then Tanaka tells him in Japan, men always come first.
In Japan, men always come first. Women come second.
Oh, wait! I get it!
Hey.
Men always come first. Oh, cause yeah, and oh my god. Oh, that's awful.
I think this sequence is actually good because it's the only sequence, one of the only sequences where Sean Connery kind of like wakes up. You know, he's like,
Yes.
oh, girls.
Someone's touching me.
Then he goes back to this office building where there's shenanigans going on because it has something to do with the rockets. And they slip in. Roald Dahl makes sure to slip in another stereotype. He gets there for his meeting as Fisher, and the guy tells him, "You're 3.5 minutes early." They're very precise, you know. And then they're like, he has a meeting, and then they're like, "Shoot him."
No, they scan his X-ray, and it's like a Walther PPK.
There's a really cool shot of him reflected against the desk, which was another one of those things of like, this is directed with style, baby. Like, this is different.
I see you, Freddie and Lewis.
Yeah, it comes like he has the X-ray machine behind his desk. He's looking at his X-ray. He sees the gun. His lungs are also completely black, and he's also chain smoking. And then we cut to in front, and we see the reflection in front. I'm just like, that's kind of a cool.
I like
they
that.
discuss the healthiness of cigarettes or whatever. Yeah, the Fisher disguise doesn't last very long because you can see that he's carrying 2 guns.
And his lungs are completely like dark from the chain
And you
smoking.
can see the gonorrhea and the syphilis like curving up and crossing over.
Great.
Up through his body.
Yeah.
Cigarettes are very bad for your chest.
And maybe we should talk about this now, although they discuss it later in the film. They established that, what's it, a Walther...
A Walther PPK.
Oh, they're gonna eat you in the comments for that one.
James Bond is the only person in the world that uses this gun.
This is another continuity error because in the first movie, when they give James Bond his Walther PPK, they go, it's standard issue at the CIA.
Is what I was going to say. Literally, his car that it can be invisible, all of his briefcase, all of this is standard issue equipment except for his gun, which is... He is the only person in the world that uses this gun, and that's how they know that it's James Bond.
Yes, because James Bond at this point is not a character anymore. He's a toy. And part of his toy accessories are his car and his gun.
Yeah. So that's how famous he is. He's been franchised and merchandised, and Roald Dahl understands that in the world building of this film.
Speaking of James Bond suits, this is the only one of his movies, one of only 2 of his movies, I believe, where James Bond does not wear a tuxedo.
Oh.
Yeah.
Paul Likey.
Okay, but this is when things, when I'm having fun, but also the plot is non-existent because...
Guys, the plot's
What do you mean? What? Explain.
They're like, shoot that man. They have a car chase. It's pretty awesome. The helicopter picks up a car with a magnet.
It's amazing.
And drops it in the ocean.
It's incredible.
And it's a practical effect. It's so good.
Yeah.
Are we at the rooftop fight yet? With the Wonder?
Then he goes to the dock, and the rooftop, which they use a helicopter shot. It's like John Wick-esque.
Yeah.
It's the helicopter shot is amazing.
Sean Connery stunt doubles are like running from roof to roof, just punching people in a giant Wonder.
He's shooting people.
So far, the movie's really gelling with me. I gotta say.
Wait, can we talk about the shot where Sean Connery... his stunt double does a backflip off the roof and lands behind a trash can, and then you see him, Sean Connery, like immediately pop up, and then like
a classic Texas switch, folks. That's what it's called.
And I'm like, all right.
It's great.
That was like right out of Epic Movie.
It was.
Yeah.
James Bond is in Epic Movie. We have to watch Epic Movie.
No.
That's
Dear God, no.
So what, Paul? What happens next? What do you mean there's no plot?
No, the office man
no
is
plot.
just the office man is so desperate to kill this man that he's having them unload this massive machine gun before he's even walked out of the driveway of their office building.
Yeah.
He fights 50 guys John Wick style. Then they capture him and they don't kill him.
Well, because he bribes Helga Brandt, going like, "Why don't you I'll give you a cut of the information that I have." Even though, like, she announces, I think within ear range of James Bond, she announces that she's a Spectre agent. I think this is the first clue.
Yeah, this is when you're like,
Spectre.
oh, this is about Spectre.
Yeah.
And also they say something like, "Oh, let number 11 take care of it," and you're like,
Numbers.
Uh-oh.
Stinky.
So he kind of seduces her or does something, so then she doesn't kill him. Then they're in a plane, but then she's like, psych, see ya. And then he lands the plane. And then he goes back to Tanaka. And then it's like, basically nothing has happened, right?
They gotta get the bad Bond girl. They had to get Fiona Volpe in there again.
Yeah. It's like Fiona Volpe, but she does nothing. She's just there. She's just like, she's just hot. And she just goes like, "I'm going to kill you." And then she gets eaten by piranhas, and then she's out of the movie.
Yeah, she's there to set up that Blofeld in his volcano base has a room full of piranhas.
You're right. It's the sum total of the storyline, much like the other ones, is that it's like a complete dead end. But I guess the different part of this is it's the order scrambled so that she dies like almost toward the end of the film.
No, she dies like before an hour and 15 minutes.
She dies when we first see Blofeld in this movie.
Yeah, her death is the introduction of Blofeld.
I mean, it's like, it's at least an hour 15 in an hour 55-minute movie.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, the reveal of the cat, and that's the moment where you're like, "Oh shit, this is Spectre." It's really well built up. I don't know why I like this movie so much.
And you're excited because you're like, "Oh, here comes the guy with the deep voice from the previous movies. Here comes number one." And then he's
talks like this.
And then he's like, "I talk like this.
Kill Bond now.
I have piranhas. You failed me, other guy, but psych, I'm killing the lady."
Yeah, the piranhas are awesome. The Mario 64 is awesome.
Yeah, the Mario 64 trapdoor looks pretty good. Although, I'm gonna have to say it.
Okay, don't say it.
The sets in this movie look
no.
great. The sets in this movie look great.
But
however,
it's Ken Adam with like millions of dollars to just burn.
I want Blofeld's office that he has to be my living room.
That's amazing. I could take or leave the piranhas, but like I'll take the office.
Yeah, I'm not sure also why the piranhas are in green water. I guess because the Amazon is
He doesn't clean it. He doesn't clean it, Paul.
Okay.
Yep. If it was clear water, they would have had to gun actual fish, and that doesn't work.
They drew the line.
They took Joe Dante to figure out how to do that, but
there's like 10 Spectre agents that have been like sent into that piranha pool. So
yeah, it's
there's all sorts of shit in there.
You were gonna say something about the sets.
I was gonna say something. When his little bridge falls and the guy goes in and then it goes back, it wobbles. And when it wobbles again? In the office, and there's like a giant security door. I'm not sure where or why but there's a shot with a giant security door and it wobbles. And where I didn't notice the set wobbling?
Where?
Casino Royale.
Last week.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God. Paul! The set wasn't wobbling, but your psyche was.
Maybe I was. Maybe it was. It's all a point of view,
I hate to break it to you, Paul, but
you were seduced by Orson Welles' mind torture.
That wasn't a real trap door.
Yeah. You Only Live Twice was a good faith attempt by hacks to lazily make another installment in a popular franchise, and we will not have their work maligned by all of the talented auteurs who worked on Casino Royale.
Okay,
so you're saying that Casino Royale has better sets than You Only Live Twice?
I'm just saying in one facet, I made an observation. I will say, though, that obviously, one of the all-time iconic sets ever, the precursor to the Death Star, basically.
Yeah.
The volcano. I'm looking at it and I'm just like, Well, also we're actually may or may not be working on a little bit of a project, and my brain is breaking.
Oh my
thinking
God, he's
about
plugging the
lenses.
project.
I'm plugging my project. That's right. But I'm thinking about lenses, and I'm looking at this thinking about the shape of the hanger and the distance that you have to be, like the amount of planning. You know, they didn't have like computers and shit to like figure this out. The spatial, it's like Guillermo del Toro, how he talks about like the entire house in Crimson Peak is designed for compositions. There are rooms that are made to place the camera. You know, it's really remarkable.
Okay, so Q comes in with a little helicopter that James Bond has to fly. And Q, for some reason, is now popping up at the 1 hour mark in these movies when he should be earlier.
That is weird. I'll give it to you, but I don't mind it that much.
An indication of like everyone being bored, or like the cast being bored. Like Bond tries to do like a quip to Q, and then Q's just like, I don't have time for your fucking shit.
Yeah, they're over it. Everyone's over it.
Like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Welcome to Japan, Dad. Is my little girl hot and ready?
Look, 007, I've had a long and tiring journey, probably to no purpose, and I'm in no mood for your juvenile quips.
They'd mentioned Nellie, and we're like, oh no, a little girl named Nellie. Where's this going? It's a helicopter.
Now, we're not watching the Woody Allen movie anymore.
Paul, wait, what were you thinking was going to happen here?
I have not seen this film before, so when James Bond says, Q's sending me Nellie and her uncle.
Paul, Casino Royale broke your brain.
When you watched Death Wish 3, did you think that like Charles Bronson was like, my friend Wildy's going to come, and it was going to be like some like mountain man with a machine gun?
That's not part of Paul Kersey's character that... you know, he has concubines, but...
What?
Bond doesn't have concubines.
He has co-workers and enemies.
In this movie, he does.
He was politely invited to join a bath with his friend, who's also saying racist shit.
Paul's brain is still affected by Casino Royale, I'm afraid.
Okay, can we talk about the fun stop motion shot of the little Nelly or whatever it's called, where Q's explaining it, and then it like builds itself with like little stop motion?
It's great. It reminded me of those Lego video games when you're like having to build shit.
How have they never done a Lego James Bond? That's a missed opportunity.
A man is living in a volcano in Lego City. Build the helicopter.
Yeah. Hey! The Nelly is amazing, and just seeing it flying around the volcano is already pretty cool. But then we get a shot that I'm like, this is cinema, baby. You just see the shadow of the Nelly, and then you see the shadows of the other helicopters, and he turns around and he's being chased.
So cool.
You're like, that's how you fucking do it. This is James Bond, baby. So far, the movie's 10 out of 10 for me.
This scene is, I feel, when the James Bond franchise as a whole, we were kind of there at the end of Dr. No, we were kind of there at Goldfinger. This is where James Bond becomes like high science fiction fantasy, when he's flying around in little helicopters. All right, here's what I noticed. This movie is the first time they used the Monty Norman James Bond theme during scenes that are actually suspenseful. Like, they use the theme in this helicopter scene to ratchet up the suspense. He's not unscrewing a light bulb to it. He's not checking into a hotel. He is flying around on a helicopter.
Yeah, he's not being skyhooked like Batman.
Yeah.
He's not checking his mail. It's an actual fight action scene.
Yes.
It's pretty spectacular. There's like 5 helicopters going after him. They're shooting at each other, fire. They're flying all over the place. And you can tell that, I mean, it's a minor point, I guess, but like most of this movie, you can tell that, oh yeah, it's really Japan. Like, there's no way they could have faked this. Like,
well, Connery's in front of rear projection.
Yeah, I mean, when it's him in this, death trap, 1,000 feet in the air, yes. But yes, I was thinking to myself, they more convincingly go to Japan in this series than they go to Miami.
Yeah, their Kentucky left some things to be desired.
They did go to Kentucky.
What are you talking about? They did go to Kentucky. They went to Kentucky Fried Chicken and
They found one Kentucky Fried Chicken in like Malta, and they were like, this is it.
They had stud ranches and Kentucky Fried Chicken. That's all you need to say we're in Kentucky.
The ninja school castle was more convincing for Paul than the Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Did I say Kentucky? I said Miami, didn't I?
I know, but we all know what you're actually talking about is Felix Leiter standing in front of Kentucky Fried Chicken for a whole movie.
No, I believe
which is also
that.
one of the greatest movies ever made.
Yes, we're talking about You Only Live Twice, which is One of the
movies that has ever been made, for sure.
Guys, we haven't even gotten to the ninja school yet, where everyone's just screaming at me for 5 minutes.
You think they maybe they showed Orson Welles the scene where Felix is standing in front of the Kentucky Fried Chicken as a way to lure him into the
He was
James
very
Bond
upset when he
franchise?
found out it was not an Eon production. They gave him like one bucket, and Peter Sellers kept asking him for a drumstick, and he was visibly upset.
Yeah, that's where the hostility started.
Yeah, I want a drumstick.
They had to fly in a
my
bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken over to England so he could have it under his table.
That's why he's doing magic tricks. When he has like a cloth up, he's eating a drumstick.
He's got to keep snacking, keep his energy up.
Right when they call cut, he's just like, ah, yum. Yes, they're even better raw.
Okay, so anyway,
So
Alfie.
he beats all the helicopters. Then we just cut to the Russians also have one of their rockets get eaten by another rocket. So we're all in this together, folks.
Yeah, and they think it's the Americans who've done it this time.
We see the Death Star, and it's got piranhas, which we don't see though. But it is, at least conceptually leveling up from Largo's sharks.
Well, anything is leveling up from Largo.
And I feel like the not seeing the piranhas and the wobbling of the sets and everything are just part of the charm of.
Yeah, no, I love how like it's quaint. It's like a bed and
Okay.
breakfast evil lair.
It's fine. I mean, this is a quaint series, yes.
James Bond is quaint.
In an unrelated note, Blofeld has a people mover in his Death Star.
Oh yeah.
Great.
Yes, and also the main inspiration for Syndrome Slayer in The Incredibles.
Well, Blofeld's lair inspired all the lairs that have been and ever will be.
But especially the people mover thing.
Yeah, well, you have the people mover theme. You have like people driving carts. You have like platforms moving up and down to the side all over the place.
And it's supposed to be the layer of Dr. No, but like good this time.
Yeah, yeah. Dr. No is the rough draft. This is the finished one. Though I like the lair in Dr. No.
The lair in Dr. No is still pretty fucking cool.
Oh no, it's good for the budget they had, but this is like an actual blockbuster.
It's insane.
Like it costs as much as the budget of Dr. No to build the set.
Yes, just that set.
And it's even like, again, speaking to the somewhat inconsistent VFX, when the rocket comes in and goes out, it's kind of hard to tell like what's a miniature and what's not,
Yeah, it looked good.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the story was at this point in the movie, but it looked good.
It looked good.
Anyway, we keep ignoring the ninja school where we get that.
There's a ninja school.
Where we get that really cool shot of that ninja guy with the sword, and he has like the fucked up teeth, and he goes right up to camera like ah!
Yeah, Tiger Tanaka takes James Bond on a tour of his ninja school where you die for real. And like everyone is like fighting each other and beating each other up with swords and flips. And they do that for 5 minutes. And then Tiger Tanaka goes, and now we'll take you to modern ninjas. And it's just people in karate clothes, like
with guns.
Yeah, and it's like
there's
okay.
literally like a conga line of just people with guns going like hut 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 hut.
Also, this is when we get to the ninja school is when the movie takes a really hard turn. The plot just sort of stops. But I still like it because it kind of becomes like a hangout movie. Like I'm just hanging out with my friend who is turning Japanese.
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely a shift from just like spectacular wheel spinning when he literally is like, I'm going to see what's up with this, has an incredible action sequence, and then just comes back to square one again. And now he's chilling.
Yep.
They're occasionally trying to kill him.
Yeah. Half of them are assassins who are trying to kill him.
Yeah. And there's never really a good explanation for why he needs to go to ninja school and turn Japanese. They're just like, now you'll turn Japanese. Now you'll get a Japanese wife.
You must become Japanese.
Yeah, isn't the whole reason why he has to turn learn Japanese just because he needs to live on the island for a little bit to dive closer to the volcano when you're just like, dude, just drop him in the whirligig.
Yeah.
And they also found out that he's James Bond because now Spectre knows that James Bond is not actually dead.
Right. He blew his cover, so he can't be Fisher anymore.
But he could be a fisherman, a Japanese fisherman.
There you go.
You just see M and Tiger Tanaka looking at a board and they cross out Fisher, but then they rewrite it and they add the word man to the end of it. And then they shake hands and Moneypenny writes
And then
that
they
down.
add a $sign.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Roald Dahl, you genius. But yeah, you'd think that they would have a scene or something with someone looking for James Bond, and then being like, James Bond, and then he's like, oh no, I'm not James Bond, I'm a Japanese fisherman, and this is my Japanese wife. Never comes. He only gets married and turns Japanese for his own amusement.
It doesn't work at all because the first time they send somebody to kill him, it's after he's gotten the Japanese surgery.
But he's with Aki.
And he's with Aki.
Yeah.
And they drop a guy sneaks into their bedroom and he's like trying to drop down the poison from that line.
Why does he do it like that?
It's so funny, like Sean Connery's acting at that point because he's like so done that he's just like comically just going like moves out of the way. And Aki like moves
no
up
acting required in that scene. He just
You keep expecting like a moment with Sean Connery just being like, why do I have to be Japanese again? Like what? What?
He's like, why am I doing this movie?
Yeah, because they still know it's him. It's weird because they kill him try to kill him twice. Once with the poison, and it's like immediately after he gets the Japanese surgery, they know it's him. And then he's training in the ninja school and the guy has the stick, but then the stick has like a knife on it. And then Tiger Tanaka's like, wait a second, I've never seen this man in my life.
Wait, this man didn't put out a deposit.
Like, wait a minute, you can't kill someone in ninja school. And he's like, well, he tried to kill me. And he's like, oh.
Yeah. This man is a stranger from outside.
No, from here on out, the movie's literally just like padding out the runtime. Like the whole wedding scene is just
the wedding scene
padding
so
out the
stupid.
runtime, and I kind of love it.
It's padding out the runtime, but it's fun.
Again, I know that we had our differences of opinion last week, but the wedding scene, I'm watching this and I'm like, what am I supposed to be feeling? Is this funny? What is this?
It is to me. What's not funny about Sean Connery dressed up as a Japanese man after allegedly getting surgery and getting married to a Japanese woman for absolutely no reason?
Oh, and they keep building up like Tanaka's like, oh, your wife, she's gonna look like a pig. And then they keep bringing it up. Bond's like, oh, I can't wait to see my wife who's gonna look like a pig. And then we see Kissy Suzuki and she's hot. And he's just like, what? And she's so hot that Bond breaks character because he's like bending down the entire time, and then he goes like,
and then he's fully erect. Everyone.
My favorite part of the whole movie comes right after the wedding scene, which I was laughing so hard that I had to pause the movie. And it's a very nonchalant line. It's just, they get to what's her name? Kissy
Suzuki.
They get to Kissy's house, and James Bond says, "Do you live alone?" And she says, "My parents are dead." And he goes, "Okay." And the scene just keeps going, and I was like, "What was that?" The movie's like divulging into madness.
Well, then he spends the next 10 minutes trying to have sex with Kissy, and she's just like, "No, we're not actually married. No, stop it." And then he's like, "Well, we need to be undercover, you know."
Oh, yeah.
And she's just like, "Fuck off, dude." Like
all dubbed, of course.
All dubbed by Nikki Vandersel, the voice of Ursula Andress and Dr. No, the voice of Sylvia Trench.
Well, I was gonna say that this wedding sequence, even though Roald Dahl says this book is complete shit, it's just a travelogue, this entire sequence feels like a travelogue.
It's the part that's in the book.
It's fine. It's fine.
Are you one of those people that browses through a postcard and you're like, what am I supposed to be feeling?
Don't you look at the postcard with your fake wife composited poorly onto the postcard and not just appreciate the beauty of the blue halo?
Do you remember the part where Sean Connery's trying to have sex with Kissy, and Kissy's like we're undercover, but no. And then he's just like, well, I don't need these. And he's like trying to eat his shellfish with chopsticks, and he just throws the chopsticks.
No,
away.
because I was thinking about that, because the whole joke there is oysters are aphrodisiacs.
Yeah.
So he's like, I don't need my boner.
Oh, I kind of wanted to say this now too before we get to the island. The Ninja School, one part they have throwing stars and they're all different. It's a variety pack.
Yeah.
Number 2, they've got bullets that are little rockets.
Oh yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And also this whole time, especially in his like interior where he's showing off the bullets, I'm like, what does Q think of all this? Is he jealous?
Oh yeah.
It's like, because again, the structure of Q and the gadgets, which I guess people complain about because they're always like too many gadgets. From Russia with Love, the entire payoff of the movie is Q's briefcase.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This is a little bit different. Again, well, Goldfinger, you pay off the car very quickly.
Yeah, Goldfinger, all the gadgets get destroyed in an hour.
You get Little Nelly, and then
this you get the Little
used.
Nelly. It's immediately used. All the tricks and gadgets, and
and then he gets the little cigarettes.
And then Q is supplanted by Tanaka.
Tiger Tanaka, friendship of Q over. Tiger Tanaka is my new best
Exactly. So
he gets me laid. He's a great guy.
He gets me bathed. I don't stink.
He makes me Japanese. Can you make me Japanese, Q?
Yeah, anyway.
So he becomes a fisherman, and basically all that wedding and stuff was so that they could get in a boat and paddle to this island and then swim.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, fun fact, Miyahama could not do her own swimming, so the woman who does her swimming underwater is Sean Connery's actual wife at the time, Diane Salento.
Oh, yeah.
Who was also in The Wicker Man and other films. So James Bond's actual wife is in the movie, playing his wife.
Did you see Welcome to Japan, Mr. Bond? It was a documentary. I put this in quotes. It was a documentary that was
I've heard
released
about this.
at the time. And it's not really a documentary. It's more so like a bizarre narrative where Bond is simultaneously a person that exists and is a movie character, and there's an actress who's desperate to get the part of James Bond's wife. And then it cuts to Moneypenny, and it's Lois Maxwell playing Moneypenny, and her and someone else are trying to figure out who could James Bond's wife be. And you're just like, wait a second, is this supposed to wait? So is the actress lady supposed to be real, and then this is supposed to be fictional? Or what the hell is going on?
Who did they pick? Did they pick Miyahama?
I didn't finish it.
Oh, I should watch that.
Because I thought I would learn more about the making of the movie. Because I'm like, oh, I heard about this documentary, and it's like, no, it's just like a clip show with like new things. And like Q comes in at one point, and he has James Bond's engagement ring. And he's just like,
will you marry me?
This is just an ordinary engagement ring or something like that. And then it like zooms into him, and then it just cuts to an explosion.
What's weird? Okay, so again, the whole weird thing of doing You Only Live Twice before On Her Majesty's Secret Service is it really feels like we're doing the beats from On Her Majesty's Secret Service, except they mean nothing.
Yes.
Like James Bond getting married. James Bond will meet Blofeld in this movie, which we'll get to.
And it makes no sense in the next movie when Blofeld doesn't recognize James Bond. Like,
yeah, it doesn't.
You've met this person already.
Yeah, you met him before.
As you know, Jan, they go through this incredibly elaborate plan so that he can get to the island, so that he can get inside when they open the door with his suction cup suit, so that he can dress up like an astronaut and free the astronaut, so that he can get into the ship. Yep. And then Blofeld just sees him and he's like, that's not the guy. Get him over here.
Yeah.
Nobody would carry their air conditioning unit into the shuttlecraft.
No self-respecting astronaut would carry his air conditioning unit.
He's a very smart Harvard-educated fellow. He did not know how astronauts look.
Cambridge.
You forget I took a first in Oriental languages at Cambridge.
Fuck, what am I saying?
Well, you have the Boris manners of a Yaley, Paul.
Oh my god, you've had way too much Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Way too much Kentucky Fried Chicken and Casino Royale.
I'm all hopped up. So he's just like, call that guy over. We see Blofeld, and he immediately gets up and says, you only live twice.
They told me you were assassinated in Hong Kong.
Yes, this is my second life.
You only live twice, Mr. Bond.
Yeah, and then he looks at the audience, and then Sean Connery looks at the audience, and then you see Sean Connery slowly pull a gun up to his head, and then you see Lewis Gilbert running in and rushing, grabbing his hand away from.
Don't do it.
Don't do it, Sean.
Just finish this day. Just finish this day. We're almost done here.
But yes, we finally get to meet Blofeld.
Dr. Evil himself.
Yeah.
It is funny because whenever anyone talks about a evil arch nemesis or a villain, they immediately think of Blofeld in this movie.
Yes,
but they don't know they're talking about Blofeld in this movie. They think they're talking about Dr. Evil.
Exactly.
That is also true. I do think Dr. Evil may have supplanted Blofeld in this movie. But yeah, after 5 movies of buildup, like, imagine if you were one of those people, like when Thanos popped up at the beginning of Infinity War and we're like, oh, okay, this is what that felt like to people in the 60s.
He's no longer Anthony Dawson shrouded with like shadows and blinds and stuff. He is now Donald Pleasance, who is shorter, has a very light voice.
And is bald.
And he has a giant scar.
You know, how disappointing would it have been if they show Blofeld and he's just a guy? Like, they obviously had to make him, like, a little interesting to look at.
Well, this is an interesting... Jake, do you want to do the backstory of how the casting and design of Blofeld came to be?
So Blofeld was originally played by Jan Warwick.
That's my name.
Yeah, it's just like you.
How ironic. You look like Christoph Waltz, and you share a name with the original Blofeld.
Oh, there you go.
You're so villainous, Jan.
So I look like Christoph Waltz and Woodrow Wilson? This is the best day of my life.
Thank God you're tied down, because the ladies would be going crazy right now.
Oh my God. When I went to Japan, you don't want to know how it was like.
I heard you came first there.
I heard you spent hours stuck in a sumo match looking for...
Just saying I love you to people.
I love you.
So, Jan Warwick, Werich, W-E-R-I-C-H. Jan Werich was originally cast to play Blofeld, and they shot a couple days with him, and I guess Cubby Broccoli and Saltzman, they're just like, we can't use him. And they said that he looked too much like a dirty hobo Santa Claus. And they're like, no, Blofeld can't look like this. And so they're like, fuck it, we're going to recast him with Donald Pleasance. And Donald Pleasance had some ideas about what Blofeld should look like. He was saying that he should have a hump, a lame hand, a beard. But they're like, no, we just fired a guy because you looked like Santa Claus. No beard.
You look like Father Christmas. You're not Father Christmas.
And so they're like, okay, you can have an eye scar. And Donald Pleasance apparently thought this was also very uncomfortable to wear.
Yeah, no, he was like, I'll wear a hump.
It looks bad.
I'll wear a claw. I'll wear a tail. And they're like, what about a little eye thing? And then Donald Pleasance gets in the makeup chair and he's like, what the hell? What are they doing to me?
I hate this.
I hate this. And it's so weird because the eye scar is such a cool idea. And then no version of Blofeld uses the eye scar again until 2015.
And
I'm like,
Spectre.
What?
It made an impression because that is, having not seen this movie until today, that is what you have in your mind.
Yeah.
And there he is, and there's only a few scenes.
It's very funny when James Bond first meets Blofeld because, I don't know, they both seem so bored and checked out. It's supposed to be the climax. It's like, hello, Mr. Bond. Hello, Blofeld. You only live twice, Mr. Bond. Yes, Blofeld.
And then they spend most of the time watching TV.
Yeah.
They're awkwardly standing there just like...
And everyone's always like, this was the good Bond Blofeld movie. And it's just Bond in handcuffs looking bored.
Well,
and
no,
Blofeld's
he's not even
like,
in handcuffs. No, Bond
No,
has
he's
his
just
arms
standing there.
crossed. Bond has his arms crossed. There's that wide shot where it's like him, Blofeld, Bond has his arms crossed, and they're just like looking at the TV screen, and Blofeld's like petting his cat, and you're just like, what's happening?
And then once again, James Bond does nothing in this climax. The day is not saved by him. It's saved by, like...
an army of ninjas!
Yes.
An army of ninjas with guns.
I was going to say, the other thing that Donald Pleasance was probably regretting as soon as he agreed to do this movie and started shooting, some shots like that wide shot, Jake, you really see that cat like clawing out of his arms.
Oh yeah, he's going berserk.
Oh, apparently the cat peed on him all the time, too.
Yeah. No, at one point, so Bond has freed the astronauts. He gets captured by Blofeld, and he basically, in the chaos that ensues, at one point the cat runs away from Blofeld, and you're like, oh, that's in the script. No, the cat freaked out at what was happening on the set and ran away in the shot, and they couldn't find the cat in that mountain set for 2 days.
I love the idea of the scene afterwards, Blofeld just being covered in piss and shit.
He's
Looking
just
for his damn
this bald
cat.
guy with a scar, and he just smells like cat piss.
And he's like 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
He's like a pre-Danny DeVito, just this like bald, like short man.
Yeah, he's just a bald creep. He's looking at the countdown as America and Russia are about to nuke each other because they've had it with Blofeld's rocket bullshit. And then James Bond's like, can I smoke? And he's like, bad for your lungs, ho, ho, ho. And then he uses the little cigarette gun, and he just shoots a guy in the red outfit, and somehow no one shoots him or anything. It derails the whole room.
You're kind of thinking that, like, oh, he's gonna aim the cigarette at the mechanism that opens like the door to the volcano so the ninjas can get in. No, he just shoots some random guy, and then he punches people, and then immediately the one guard with a gun just points at his face. He's like, all right, you got me. And so it's entirely pointless.
Nothing.
It's not very effective, but it is, it pays off the thing about ciggies are bad for you, and it also pays off a gadget that is not a gadget that Q gave him. It's a gadget that Tanaka gave him.
Yes.
But in classic Q fashion, they both give him gadgets that ultimately accomplish nothing. And once again, like the office guy, Blofeld's like, I'm not going to kill you yet. In a minute, you know.
Well, that's the James Bond trope. That's fine.
Yeah, but Goldfinger was prepared to kill Bond right that second. Blofeld really starts all the problems of all the supervillains going forward in this movie. He's barely in it. He's sitting the whole time.
I mean, Dr. No could have also killed him immediately.
Dr. No had a cool-ass hand, and also he had hospitality. Dr. No was running a hotel in his underwater lair.
Donald Pleasance had
activity.
a cat that shat on him.
What have you got? Yeah. But the ninjas come in, crazy giant battle.
Yeah.
Everybody goes.
There's guys with
around.
Some of the ninjas have swords, and they're like mowing through people. It's like fucking Star Wars.
Stuntman City.
It did remind me a bit of the climax of Casino Royale. Just the sheer scope and craziness of it all.
Well, it's just like people throwing grenades, explosions, people flying through the air, freaking. Yeah. And then Donald Pleasance is like, "They'll never break in here. This is impenetrable." And then immediately there's like someone throws a grenade. There's like a hole in it. Bond's like, impenetrable. And then he just runs away. Oh no, he shoots the businessman first, and then he leads him to the little.
Yeah, he's like,
people mover.
I'm not killing you yet. Come over here. And then he gets to the people mover, and then he shoots. And then a ninja star, he gets his hand. He's like, oh, fuck it. All right. And then he just goes on the people mover.
In theory, he's going around the entire volcano like numerous times.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not sure how long the loop is, because basically his plan is to just... The battle continues to rage. He goes on a full circuit around his people mover, presumably through a cave or something, comes back to where he was, gets back out and pushes a button and blows it up and then leaves.
Yeah.
That was his plan.
And that's how Blofeld escapes, yeah. I was remembering a movie called Spectre that came out in 2015 and how horrible it is, the treatment of Blofeld in that, because they just basically made him the Joker.
No. They made him Dr. Evil officially, because you find out that he's his brother.
He ain't heavy. He's my brother, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, but Blofeld always was Dr. Evil.
They made him Dr. Evil and the Joker, because at the end James Bond tries to shoot him and Blofeld's like, go ahead, do it. And it's like, okay, when we talk about Spectre, we'll talk about Spectre, but Blofeld is perfectly represented in this. He just wants money. He's a scumbag, and when shit goes down, he's not trying to make a point about society or any of that shit. He's just trying to escape.
Yeah.
He only cares about himself. I think that's fantastic. He doesn't even go back for the cat.
Wasn't the whole point of starting a nuclear war with not China was that Spectre will somehow rule the world if America and Russia...
Because China promised them world power?
Yeah, he wants power and money. That's it.
Yeah.
You know,
no, it's great.
That's great.
I like it. It's so simple.
Yeah, it's a James Bond movie. Like, it's a fucking cartoon.
This is like the distillation of like the height of Bond's popularity. It's like, okay, yep. It's just guy against evil organization that wants money, power, whatever the fuck. This is just the basic shit with all the fucking like gizmos and fucking $1 billion sets and bullshit like that. And it's fucking it's fun.
There's a beautiful simplicity. Like, if you describe what's going on in the ending, it doesn't really, you're like, okay, what's going on? But watching it, like seeing all the ninjas and Spectre agents fighting, seeing the giant rocket, seeing Kissy Suzuki and Tiger Tanaka in there, seeing James Bond fight not Red Grant again.
Oh, yeah, the giant guy.
That's only there, I feel, because they're like, it's Connery's last movie. He should fight another giant blonde guy.
Of course, it's fun. You know what would have helped the climax, I think, which could have also helped a little bit the whole turning Japanese plot point, is Sean Connery could have brought his Japanese wig and eyebrows with him, and then when he's trying to escape the volcano, he puts them on, and then maybe Blofeld like comes up to him and he's like, "Excuse me, good sir, have you seen James Bond?" And he's like, "Oh no, speak
That would have
English."
been funny. Wait, I'm sorry, I had to duck out for 1 second. Did we already talk about my favorite part of the climax where Blofeld has the choice to shoot either Bond or his employee, and he shoots his employee?
Yeah, well, we kind of touched on it.
All right,
he's
fine.
fucking evil.
I know, but I enjoy it because it's like, this isn't efficient.
Yeah.
This is the same kind of Paul. It's like what we were talking about with Christopher Nolan. Well, this is off mic, off the podcast. We were just talking about it's purely just for theatrical purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
something like that.
It just feels right that, of course, Blofeld will shoot his assistant or the guy who's helping him, and then lead Bond into another place where he's about to shoot him. And it's great.
I mean, I guess, yeah, the movie is kind of banking on their feud, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Correct. But like Troy said, it's not efficient. Like, imagine if every time a gadget malfunctioned, Bond like shot Q.
Yeah.
It's funny to think about. You're right.
I would like to see that happen in a Bond movie. M just like, Q, come in.
We don't tolerate failure.
Yes, old boy, we don't tolerate failure. Anyway.
But yeah, so Woodrow Wilson's in front of the Woodrow Wilson picture. Bond stop. How does Bond stop the nuclear war exactly?
Oh, he pushes a button.
Yeah, no, he gets the key. The key is jammed. He's trying to open it, but the thing is closing in on the shuttle. Then he opens the thing and presses a button and it explodes. And then the Americans are like, "Well, problem solved." Even though, as far as they know, the Russians were about to eat their thing, but it had exploded. So, like, I would think that the simple fact that they saw in their mind, like, a Russian thing about to eat another shuttle.
Yeah,
you'd
like, think that would be
what the
enough.
fuck, Russia? And you would also think that Bond would relay, actually, Russia's not behind this. This evil criminal organization, Spectre, who held the world ransom a few years ago, is actually behind this. They don't think that's like the whole
this is
ticking clock
definitely not
makes no sense.
Goldfinger, where the UK and America are like one organization, effectively.
Yeah,
that is interesting that they didn't get Felix Leiter involved in this mission. Actually, it is kind of
There's no
strange
Felix
because I get in the book why they don't do that, because the book is basically Lucifer Safin's plan, but in this movie where it specifically impact
who's that?
Oh wait, what? Oh God, Future.
Troy, you need to see some help because you keep saying that you've seen No Time to Die.
Blofeld's in it. He has the scar.
Sure, Grandpa. Let's put you back in the home.
Oh my God. But anyway, yes, it is weird that Felix is not involved when American interests are like directly threatened in this movie.
Yeah.
The grand finale of this movie is James Bond pushes a button and blows up the ship. Blofeld pushes a button that blows up the base, but everybody gets out.
That's really out of the way, the button to blow up the base. I thought about that this time. Like, it's in a little corner. He has to move a little rock.
He had to ride the people mover all the way around.
I love the people mover. Are we allowed to say on the podcast? Is that favorite attraction? Oh.
It is, but no.
Yeah, you'll have to believe that.
Anyways, Bond, the ninjas, and Kissy escape the lair. They're on a raft in the middle of nowhere. Kissy's just like...
Give me a kissy.
Yeah, basically. Connor's like, they'll never find us out here. Let's have our honeymoon and fuck on this raft. Immediately, a British submarine comes up and picks them up. And it's kind of the most anticlimactic ending of the movie so far.
I really like it, though, because you get M and Moneypenny back, and Moneypenny's like, I'm going to like breaking this up, and it's a nice little
it's funny.
Moment.
I think it's the same as all the other endings, no? They're like
yeah, all the other
stranded in
endings
the
are pretty
ocean and
similar.
they fuck.
Well, I mean, his last adventure, Thunderball, had him also in a raft, but it is nice to see M and Moneypenny. Or should I say M and Penny?
Well, Dr. No is also a raft, right?
Thunderball, at least, like, Bond is being active and he's like trying to escape and he skyhooks out of there.
Okay, you guys are way too hung up on the skyhook thing.
This
it's pretty cute.
It was not that interesting. I like the submarine with Moneypenny in her little hat and her little jacket, and she's like, I'm gonna go cock block James Bond.
Well, it's not even like a Spy Who Loved Me or a Moonraker situation where Bond is on the job and then the British government basically try to cuck him.
No, it's about the relationship between Bond and Moneypenny, because they're OTP.
I don't think so, Troy.
I don't believe
you're
you.
reaching a little bit.
Tiger Tanaka, a god among men, said, when are you going to make an honest woman out of Miss Moneypenny? He says this in the bath.
I think his real love is Mr. Tanaka.
Yes.
Oh.
He did say I love you. So is Tiger Tanaka just like one of those friend zone friends who's like, yeah, I'll be your wingman. I'll catch you late, but he's like secretly like pining after James Bond. And it's actually like this really sad, like unrequited love story.
That's how I read it.
Tiger Tanaka calls up M and he's like, M, can you make the code word? I love you. I just want to hear him say it once. Tiger, you got to move on.
He doesn't even remember going to Japan, Tiger.
He doesn't even remember Tokyo.
That's my ideal ending for this movie, is that he's on the raft, he takes Kissy's mask off, and it's just Mr. Tanaka, and they passionately make love.
They say men come first over here.
Let's test that theory.
I love you, Tiger.
I love you, Bonsan.
And it says, and this time it says that he will return for real in
On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Don't they change the wording a bit because the title is On Her Majesty's Secret Service? It's like James Bond will return
on Her
Majesty's Secret Service, or James Bond will be in the employ of like something weird like that.
Yeah, no, they do. They forgot to do the word in, I think on purpose to make it sound like James Bond will return on Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is kind of clunky.
Which sounds like he's gonna be shagging the Queen. Like he's gonna be on her.
He will come again on Her Majesty's Secret
on
Service.
Her Majesty.
Sorry, man.
James Bond will come on Her Majesty. Like, I'm gonna see that movie.
Anyway, so now we've reached the end of You Only Live Twice. Let's get into some ratings and toupee. Start out with you, Jan.
This movie is incredible. I mean, we already talked about it in length, I feel like, but I don't know why. I remember not liking this one as much as a kid, but this one really kind of has everything. It has lovable characters, it has great action, it has great vistas, and then halfway through, it just becomes into like a weird chill movie where James Bond decides he wants to be Japanese and he's just living as a Japanese man for the rest of it. I like it.
That's all that's
happening. Sue me. That's all that's happening.
No volcano base, no Blofeld. James Bond's just like trying to figure out chopsticks.
Then the volcano base comes on and it's awesome. That set is awesome.
Yeah.
Donald Pleasance clearly doesn't want to be there, but still very iconic. The plot is always moving forward. Well, no, that's a lie.
It's always moving.
The plot is moving forward. Yeah.
It's going on that people mover. It's going around and around and around.
It's going around. I am giving it, let's say a 7.5 out of 10. I would put it right below Goldfinger.
Ooh, okay.
Oh, and the toupee. The toupee, I think, is pretty good in this one. It's basically, it looks a lot like the toupee from Thunderball, but it's got a little more movement. There's a little more going on there. You can tell that they try to make it look more like real hair. So I'm going to give it a 7 or an 8. Yeah, that sounds fine. The best parts of the movie is when he's not wearing a toupee and he's looking rough and bloated. Troy, what do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean his toupee, I would consider this the beginning of the end for the Connery toupee and possibly toupees as a whole. Thunderball, we had that Lego like pristine round thing. With this, we got the monkey toupee when he's like Japanese and he looks like Davy Jones and like he's in the Monkees. Then we've got, I don't know, his hair just is kind of like cavorting weird. It's okay when he's talking to Blofeld. He looks sad when he's wearing it. I'm going to give the toupees here a 6 because they're basically honing in on average. And I know we've got worse to go here, but like I'm really not wowed with the toupees. In terms of the film, this is the first James Bond film, especially now that I've changed my opinion on From Russia with Love. And I would like to point out, I have seen You Only Live Twice 3 times now.
Whoa.
It is okay. It is fine. It does not have a story. It does not have characters that have emotions because it shoots itself in the foot whenever it could have characters that have emotions.
Or it chops your foot off in a horrible
Or it chops your
helicopter
foot off in a
accident.
thing. If Aki and Kissy Suzuki were one character, we could have a different discussion here. But they aren't. However, what this movie does have, especially in the second half, is imagination. And there are so many wacky things like Bond sliding down an office, Bond faking his own death, M living in a submarine, Blofeld's in a volcano, James Bond's karate chopping a plane in half, little whirligigs, and ninjas fighting Spectre. That is why we watch James Bond. So because of that, I still had an okay time. It's a shallow film. It's a messy film. It's also, I'll admit this time, the racism hit me a little more, but I don't think I'll change my rating on the whole. Much like the toupee, it's rough, but it does the job. There will be worse to come. 6 out of 10, 3 out of 5. Better than Thunderball.
Absolutely not.
Not as good as the first 3.
Troy, you're wrong. In fact, I thought I killed you. Aren't you dead?
Well, that bit went nowhere.
I played Woodrow Wilson in a movie once.
No, you didn't.
Paul, stop being so bitter.
Paul, people don't know, but Paul's recording in front of a giant picture of Woodrow Wilson in like glasses in a little suit, and he's like so upset that no one lets him be Woodrow Wilson.
He's been Woodrow Wilson the past 5 Halloweens.
Anyway, so yeah, Troy, I am more or less on the same page. I think this one is like the most cartoony-ish one out of the official James Bond movies so far. At times it loses the track and you're just kind of like, what the hell is going on?
It's part of the magic.
Yeah, well, it doesn't quite have like the same levels like throughout of like, oh, here's a underwater fight or there's a laser. There's not quite of like all those like holy shit moments, but it's cartoony. It's fun. It's a little unfocused. It's a good time. It's not as bad as Casino Royale. I give this one a solid 3 out of 5. Connery's toupee. It looks awful in this movie. I hate it.
I thought it looked fine.
He looks so weird. It just looks so much like a toupee. It just doesn't even look like it's combed most of the time. There is one point where the hair kind of falls, that looks like it's falling down when he's cracking the safe. And I'm like, okay, it kind of looks like real hair there. I actually prefer the wig that he wears when he has the when he
When
puts
he's
on the Davy
Japanese.
Jones wig. When he's
Well, yeah, because
Japanese.
it's covering more of his head.
No, but come on, this toupee is better than the Goldfinger one.
No, I think the
No.
Goldfinger one is much better. The Goldfinger one is like
Come on, Paul,
combed
back
and
me up.
Well,
it looks like it's combed. It's basically like if someone were to make like a cartoonist rendition of James Bond, it is combed in that particular way, and it looks fine in that movie. In this, it just looks like a thing that is just sitting on his head that like has no shape or anything. 2 out of 10 for me on the wig, on the toupee. Paul, what do you think?
I thought it looked okay.
I mean, I think the wig didn't throw it for me, but I was trying to be a good podcaster and I was trying to observe it more. It's interesting in this one because they're trying to make it more natural. It gets a little more fluffed up for extended sequences, especially the back-to-back-to-back action bit with the dock and the cars and the rooftop and all that. The problem is when it gets a little fluffed up, you can see that number one, that the way the top is fluffed does not match the sides. And number two, you can kind of see that there's nothing underneath.
Are you talking about the plot or the wig?
I'm talking about the wig.
Okay.
But
because I agree, they did try to make it look more natural.
Yeah. But you can kind of tell there's nothing. It's much like this movie. It is kind of at odds with itself. In some ways, continuing to refine the formula of, cartooniness. It's odd. Honestly, it is a little hard to say. I mean, I guess maybe again, much like last week's film, I'm more amused on a first viewing. Who knows what the future holds? But it's got a lot of pretty spectacular stuff. It's got a lot of stuff. The film as a whole has some stuff that's pretty wonky. I will say it's kind of bizarre, the second half, as opposed to like, as we discussed, like From Russia with Love and Goldfinger and perhaps parts of Thunderball, although that's structured differently. There are, at least one big chunk of a sequence that we're just kind of like, skip,
Yeah.
In this, that is obviously the Japanese stuff, but in this, it's so outrageous and bizarre that it's not a skip. You can't look away,
That's what I'm saying. Like, even the wonky parts are so charming.
It does hold your attention, which is why I still like it. I still like this movie quite a bit.
Yeah, so I guess, in terms of my pure enjoyment, I guess I have to say, I don't know. It's not Goldfinger, it's not Thunderball, but it's maybe in the neighborhood of From Russia with Love, if I'm being honest.
Wow.
That's where I first landed on my first viewing. I eventually learned to appreciate From Russia with Love, and not just because the James Bond community held a gun to my head and said, you gotta love From Russia with Love.
By the James Bond community, you mean Jake?
Yes.
No, come on. I'm not even like the biggest From Russia with Love. I love From Russia with Love, but it's not like on that pedestal that like a lot of Bond fans do.
Grab that clip. I love From Russia with Love and just loop it.
I love From Russia with Love. I love From Russia with Love. I love From Russia with Love. I love From Russia with Love.
We all need to get the sound clips of us saying "I love you."
I love you.
I love you. Now, whenever any of us like wants to use emotional blackmail, we now have clips of all of us saying "I love you."
That's how we're gonna heal once we get to a point where we can no longer continue this podcast because our friendship has been so tested by what's to come.
But your rating, Paul, and Toupee.
Toupee, like a 6, but with a smiley face and a heart.
Yes, Paul's got my back.
And the film, like maybe a 6 or a 7.
Whoa!
With obvious qualifications, as always, really. But obvious.
I mean,
qualifications.
it's the James Bond series. So
we're grading all of these on a curve.
As the ratings go up, we all feel a little shame.
I don't.
But the ratings are just gonna go down from here.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. I can't go too low because we know what's coming.
Speaking of Connery's toupee, Sean Connery attended the premiere of You Only Live Twice, and he declared his independence from the Broccoli's and the Saltzmans by not wearing a toupee, so he was bald, and he had a big beard and mustache, And I think he had a ponytail too, even. And everyone's like, what the f?
Whoa. So he was full Highlander.
Yeah, he was full Highlander. And everyone's like, this isn't James Bond. We want to see a Connery play James Bond. And yet there would be one more James Bond film released in 1967.
Wait, Troy, what are you talking about? We're doing
For
Animated
much
Studios.
like Luke Skywalker and Leia Organa, there is another. There is another Connery.
Are you trying to steal my bit?
I am the prophet of Operation Kid Brother.
Oh.
Also fall before its might.
Okay, we'll do Operation Kid Brother if you just shut the fuck up and we never talk about it again.
Here's the thing. James Bond only lived twice in 1967. Sean Connery only lived... No.
Wait, what? Oh, what was that?
Well, of course,
you know where you're going with that
you
bit.
can only live once. Where's the joke? Oh my god, you've been watching Casino Royale too long where you're like, I'm setting up a joke and there is no joke.
There were two Connerys, two lives.
Two
two
parallel
identical
lives.
souls.
Same Lois Maxwell.
What would happen if they shook hands? They won't.
They won't shake
Like in
hands.
Southland Tales.
Yes.
Oh
But you're right, Troy, there is another, and we will face it together.
No.
Yes, laugh all you want. Next week we're doing OK Connery. Anyway, this has been You'll Only Listen Twice. Signing off. I love you. I'm Jake.
I love you. I'm Jen.
I love you from Troy Woodrow Wilson Peterson.
I love you too. Night, night, sleep tight.
What?
What was that?
Oh, tuck me in!
I love you.